I feel like I blinked. Last time I checked, it was January. Super excited to be here today. We have Eric and Stephanie over at Enable. Hi guys, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Awesome,
Yeah, excited to
awesome.
be here.
Great to have you. So, first off, I like to just have an intro. If you want to kind of just tell some of the people that are dropping in a little bit about who you are, what your roles are within Enable, and we can kind of kick things off that way.
All right. Do you want to start first there, Eric, or do you want me to kick it off?
No, I can do that. Sure. Thanks everybody for having us today. My name's Eric Harless. I've been with Enable about 8.5 years, but I've been in the data protection space for a little over 25. I hold the role of a head backup nerd here. So I'm a product evangelist, a guru, the kind of go-to guy, if you will. My goal is really to build out a community of data protection gurus and savants that know about all things data protection out there. Build out a community.
Awesome. Yeah. And my name is Stephanie Hammond, and I'm the head sales and marketing nerd here at Enable. I've been with Enable for 17 years, a little over 17 years, kind of when it was Enable the first time around. I love that we've kind of gone back to our roots. I've had a lot of different roles throughout my tenure at Enable. I started as a partner development specialist, moved into channel sales, account management, and then I ended my role as principal account manager, managing all of our elite and our super elite partners. And so now, as head sales and marketing nerd, I'm really involved helping our partners with all things from the business end of things. Like, we have the technology that we sell them, but how kind of you take that technology, package it all up, and be successful in selling it in the market. And so I handle things like program development, program design, sales, marketing, all sorts of things for our partners.
So a jack of all trades, right, Stephanie?
Pretty much when it comes to the business side. Yeah. Try anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had, great success. A lot of our elite clients have great success with you guys. You guys have been at our live events. And anybody who's watching live with us today, please make sure if you have any questions that you want them to answer live for you, that you put them in the chat or in the Q&A. And I will make sure to have those answered and addressed live while we are on the webinar today. But Stephanie, I know you had kind of a presentation to
I do. Yeah. So
let's go ahead and kick
ready
that
for me to share it out. All right, give me a thumbs up if you can see our presentation. Okay. All right. So again, so extremely excited to be joining everybody today and to be talking to you, albeit virtually, about what, Eric and I at Enable believe to be a very important topic. And that is really on data management and the changes that are occurring out there in the marketplace today. So already did my presentation, my introduction, Stephanie Hammond, head sales and marketing nerd. My contact information is there on the slide, my email address. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, we should be connected. And then I'm also on Twitter. And then Eric's bio and information as well. Again, Eric and I are both on Twitter. We're both on LinkedIn. So we should be connected there. So, but, for those attending that maybe you're not familiar, with who Enable is, because, we've kind of had a couple of names over our tenure. We've been around for 20 years, but, at our heart, we are a network monitoring, security, and backup software vendor. We partner with MSPs, IT firms, support firms to really help them monitor, manage, secure, and protect their internal systems and their data, but also along with their clients' network infrastructure and their data as well. And so there's a lot of different ways in which Enable helps MSPs and IT teams with our tool sets. So, with our security and backup technology stacks, we help MSPs really stay ahead of the ever-evolving threat landscape that can really impact the safety and viability of your client's data. And then with our remote monitoring solutions, we have two platforms. We help MSPs proactively monitor, manage, maintain their clients' networks, leveraging automation, self-healing, and we really provide MSPs with the ability to easily scale up to support many, many organizations as they grow. But we are more than just a technology vendor. For almost 20 years, and I've been part of it for over 17, we've been working very closely with our partners, helping them to elevate their MSP practice, utilizing all the best practices that we glean from industry top experts. And Eric and I are part of the head nerd teams, and we're part of those industry experts that Enable has. And so Eric and I, our title, as crazy as it is head nerd. So exactly what does that mean? Really, in short, it just means that we're a team of MSP technical and business subject matter experts. We've been part of the managed services industry for a really long time. There is 6 of us in total, so 2 of us are here today. And what we do is we create, deliver, host a wide variety of boot camps, office hours on all sorts of topics that MSPs really care about to really help advance and move their business forward and make their business, help run their business more operationally and make it more operationally efficient and obviously profitable. So the nice thing is about our boot camps is you don't need to be an Enable partner to attend any of our boot camps or any of our office hours. Any MSP who is interested in continually learning and wanting to improve their knowledge and their skill sets is able to register and attend any of our boot camps or our office hours. And you can see on the slide there, I have a link. It's just enable.com/events and just filter by the head nerds. And then you'll be able to register for any topic there that may interest you. But just kind of a brief overview of who the head nerds are. So it's all headed up by Marc-Andre Tanguay. He's our head nerd for automation. He really demonstrates how partners can use both of our platforms to improve their business processes. So there's a lot of things that our platforms, our monitoring platforms can do out of the box, but he really, in his classes, teaches our partners and MSPs how to get the most out of the RMM tool sets. Then we have our head security nerd, Lewis Pope, and he works with our partners, really teaching them how to deal and address with the day-to-day business and technical challenges that a lot of MSPs must overcome in their pursuit of providing cybersecurity solutions to their clients. So he spends a lot of his time in his boot camps and his office hours teaching MSPs, how they can help their customers implement good cyber hygiene controls, again, using strategy and also using our tool sets. We have a head nerd for Mac. So he's kind of our guru, like Eric is for our MSP backup. He's kind of our guru for all things Apple. He has fantastic knowledge and expertise in how to manage Macs in a Windows first environment, which I know a lot of MSPs are, and I know what our partners are really dealing with today. Jason Murphy, he's our head operational efficiency nerd. Working with Mark, he also assists our MSP partners with all things automation, monitoring, patch management, also has a good background in IT service management. And then we have Eric, our ultimate guru for all things backup. He can talk about backup for decades, I think, and you would be enthralled with everything that he says. I've learned so much from working with Eric over all these years. And then myself as the head sales and marketing nerd. And I'm basically kind of, running up at the end with all things business that our partners may be dealing with. On top of the nerds, we also have some other great business building resources that we offer our partners. The one that I love that I know is really helping our partners is our marketing in minutes platform that we call Market Builder. And this is really our on-demand marketing collateral. We have an extensive library of marketing collateral pieces, campaigns. I think we have over 55 different campaigns right now that our partners are able to leverage to really help with their marketing. So it's you're not reinventing the wheel. We do the heavy lifting and do all the creativity and all that work for you. And then you can take it and put it out on posts on your social, or do posts, or direct mail if you wanted, or email campaigns. So I'm heavily involved with the market builder side of the things of the business. But then we also have our MSP Institute, which is our learning portal that houses all of our on-demand technical and business kind of training. And then we have our Enable peer groups and our growth strategists as well. But the real reason, kind of why we're here talking with everyone today and chatting with you is, I think everybody can admit that a lot is changing in the world today around data management. The next generation data storage market is expected to be worth 56.7 billion with a B by 2027. Yeah. And when you look at the annual compound growth rate of 10.1%, that's pretty good. That's pretty phenomenal. But I don't think it's necessarily surprising though, especially when we look at COVID, right? I think we can all understand why that is. COVID has created this new work from home scenario. I joke that, I've been working from home for 15 years. So COVID didn't really affect me. I've always been working from home, but this is a new normal for a large segment of the population. And so, there's more and more people working from home. There's more and more devices out there, and we are storing more and more amounts of information and data. And so when you look at this change and you see the potential size of the storage market, and you can see how fast it's growing, and you can understand why it's growing so quickly, you can see that there's a really sizable, nice size opportunity out there for MSPs to make money. And then of course, I think the most important thing that we saw was this massive adoption of the cloud, because organizations, they had to move really quickly to move their offices and to migrate their people so that they could work remotely. And so thinking of this now as this global economy, it's really forced us to kind of rethink, how we manage not only the IT infrastructure and the businesses as a whole, but more importantly, because of these changes, it's really forcing us to kind of rethink how we're managing all of that data, because Absolutely. We now have to consider and we have to contend with local, regional, national, global regulations, because not everybody is regional anymore, right? As MSPs listening today, you may be regional, but you may have customers that might be global, or the customers that they have might be dealing with somebody who's global. So as MSPs, you may have been working within local regulations prior to COVID, but now that your customers likely may have remote workers, and who knows where they're working. Like I know at Enable, we had people working in Florida and Mexico and all over the place. So things might have changed now in terms of regulations and the compliance that they have to follow. So as a result, we now have all of these inception points, throughout the world, right? Where data is touching different countries. And as a result, service providers, MSPs, you now need to understand, how is that data moving around? We now have to consider all of those different regulations that are out there. But that shouldn't be scary. Like, I really don't want that to, like have you hold your breath. Regulations are our friends. There is money to be had. There's opportunities to be had when it comes to working within regulations. And so you want to say something?
Steph, let me interject for a second there. I'm curious, since we've got some folks that are live here. If anybody's bound by any particular regional, industrial, HIPAA compliance, any type of regulations you're bound by, if anybody wants to drop those into the chat section, let us know what keeps you guys up at night. That'd be great to see. I know we collect what we hear coming from our partners, but knowing what actually impacts you guys the most would be great to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a slide on that. So I'll remind people when I get to that slide, Eric, to kind of drop if there is anybody that they know that they fall underneath the different regulations that we're going to be talking about. But
I mean, and I think that that's like so valid, because, our business model at Seven Figure, like I've worked remote since I've worked for Chris, and, before that too. But, you think about it, the office is just this big secure bubble that you get to walk into every day. Your computer's there, you
The
probably
firewall.
everything's already set up. It's this like safe bubble, right? Like I can work safely here. And then taking that to home, right? Where, everybody's working on different internet, different kind of connections. And, I've seen a lot that have, kids that play the Xbox and things like that, where I'm like, okay,
Using the work computer to do homework, like, the working or the school from home, like not everybody has, if you have 3-4 kids, not everybody has 3-4 computers, so they can all do their homework, right?
Right.
There's only so much you can do on a tablet. So
Yeah.
you need a physical computer to actually do a lot of the work. So yeah, so absolutely. And that brings about, right, what you're saying, that added layer of security, that added layer of complexity. But again, that shouldn't scare you as an MSP. Like that's a good thing. That's money, that's opportunities to be had if you can kind of harness that, put a package around it, and start selling it out to your customers.
Yeah.
Because when you really have to, manage all of that, and kind of going back to the data side of things, and manage multiple regulations in different regions, all of that gives you a chance to charge more, right?
Absolutely.
The integrity of your client's data is what is utmost important, and you want to preserve that integrity of that data. And so, what I've been talking about with my partners is, and I joke that you guys don't run nonprofits. You should be charging a premium on your services, because this whole new world that we're in is not the same that it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so with all the changes that are happening, it requires a new level of expertise and a new level of speciality that just really wasn't necessary before.
Absolutely.
So going to Eric's slide, so regulations, they keep evolving. So what do I mean by that? If there are regulations that you're falling under, as Eric said, just kind of throw it into the chat there. But we all know about GDPR, all very aware of that. But we're now starting to look at kind of this movement of data between the EU and the US. So we have the EU and the US Privacy Act, or the Privacy Shield. I know there's a bunch of different names for it. And then we also have the European Data Protection Board. They're consistently kind of looking at, what are the rules, what are the regulations around GDPR? How are we sharing data across GDPR to the UK, now that we have to take into account Brexit? How do you do this all internationally? That type of thing. Then we have Australia, which has just actually finished redoing their Data and Privacy Act for the first time since the late 80s, which means that there's going to be a new level of complexity there. And then, probably the biggest one, China, they're coming out with their own data management and their own set of regulations. And it's actually said that China's going to have the strictest Data Privacy Act in the world. And so they're going to begin to impose their own rules on the world, which is going to force all of us, all other countries, to kind of relook at what we're doing, because so many companies in some way or another touches the Chinese market.
Yep.
And then, kind of adding in some additional complexity here, right? Now we now have regional acts, and using California as an example, they've introduced their own Data Protection Act. And if you breach that California Act, as an example, you're not going to be able to do business with the California government, for 5-6 years. I can't remember the number, but so as much as your clients need to follow, kind of their local regulations, like if you're in California, you now need to start thinking about their localized, regionalized regulations as well, on top of what they're already doing today. And so the challenge comes as the MSP, kind of how do you marry all of that up? So when you look at this, all of this, the idea is that if you have customers who deal with any businesses that are national, international, global, they are going to be touching a multitude of different acts. And they are going to be looking to you as their MSP to kind of help them understand how to manage all of that.
Yep.
And it doesn't really mean that you got to go out to be an expert on all of these and guarantee compliance, but it just means that you need to be able to support your customers in a variety of different ways to help them properly store that data and maintain the integrity of that data. That's kind of the main point there. And then, and that's really important. And there's going to be a whole bunch of things flashing on the screen here, because with changing regulations, although they're put in place to protect us, they're also put in place to penalize us, you know, when those threat actors find a way to get past our defenses. And so that's why we even have regulations in the first place, right? You know, hackers, they're smart people. They're always going to find ways to go after and get that data. Data is worth money. And with the increase in data growth, you know, that we're seeing occurring, and it's going to continue to occur, your client's data is only going to become more and more valuable to those bad guys, right? And so as such, you know, attackers, they're just going to keep getting smarter. They're just going to keep getting more sophisticated in their hacking attempts. And, you know, that's what it's here. Just read the news, like all the different headlines that have flashed before you there. But again, looking for the opportunities here as an MSP, right? How do you deal with all of this? You're going to want to put a layer of security on top of all of this to protect that data. And so when we have to add in that layer of security on top of that data, that just becomes another revenue stream for you. So having a strong data management plan is really kind of the tail end of a layered security program. Like we talk about security a lot, building security programs. I have a whole, I think it's a 3-hour boot camp that I offer on how do you build and sell security programs. I do a boot camp with Lewis Pope on the building to a cybersecurity framework. So it's important if you're not doing it today, but then your backup kind of, I always say, it kind of backfills. It kind of is that tail end of it. And it's really your last line of defense in a well-structured layer security program. So again, all this being said, as much as regulations can penalize, this is where it's really important to have structured security plans that do meet regulatory requirements. And that's going to help increase your security posture as an MSP, but it's also going to increase the security posture of your customer as well. And at the same time, it's going to kind of help your bottom line. So
where is Enable Backup stored?
I'm going to hand that over to Eric.
Okay.
So we're a cloud-first backup solution. So we'll give you an optional local ability, so you can have your own local vault where you're keeping data on-premise, you know, at your corporate office, or you know, the MSP can house a copy of the data if you would like, or you know, where the laptop or end customers' devices are. But that's more of a backup cache or restore cache. We don't really consider the data protected until it's off in one of our 30 regional data centers. That's spread across 17 countries on 5 continents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We have everybody covered.
Sounds like it.
So the concept that Steph was talking about there, where you know, your backups need to be that last line of defense. You know, you've got to have something in place. You know, no real business, no business that's looking to move forward, you know, is going to go without liability insurance or without property insurance. They shouldn't be going without data protection. They shouldn't go without security. But because of the way the market's changed, the way the work from home model is now probably first, it means that we've broken a lot of those legacy or those standard models that you're used to. You know, you used to have your laptops and your workstations in-house. They were backing up to a local backup server, a local backup device, maybe a backup NAS or a backup appliance that may have synchronized and sent data off-site. But now, with you being a remote user, you either may not have the bandwidth to get the data back into that centralized office. The corporate office may not be able to support all the employees connected in over VPN doing backups while they're still utilizing all of their outbound resources and video calls like this over their networks and so on. So the model of having it all centralized and then pushing out is broken. You need more of either a hub and spoke or a cloud direct style model now. So that evolution is an area that we've been able to kind of step up, and it's really highlighted the advantages of our cloud first approach. And if you don't go through that, though, you've got the risks. As it was said, you've got other users on your laptops, the cat walking across your desk because you didn't lock it, accidentally deleting files. It happens. Your network is nowhere near as secure in your home office as it would be if you were inside of the corporate firewall. So a bad actor getting into your infrastructure through another computer on the network that is not secured because it's your 10-year-olds. Those kind of things open up a lot of additional risk that maybe your company is going to assume, or your homeowner's insurance might and your umbrella might end up assuming if you're not careful. So there's lots of reasons why you want to make sure that you are protected, that you understand the cost of having those systems distributed, and without having backup, without having a good security posture in place. I can take examples, all day long, grab an example here of a drafting and design firm, or sorry, I drew a blank there, graphic design or an architectural firm and things like that, where for every hour they're down, they're looking at, between $400 to $1,000 of billable work projects. But there's also reputation costs. If you can't deliver on that project, you have to delay it by a day or by a week, or you can't complete a project because you've been hit by ransomware and you can't get that data back reasonably. All of those are going to cause some additional impact. Once again, it's not new, but having to restate that cost back to your clients helps you put yourself into the right position. It's not just scare tactics. It's the reality of, what could you do? What would you do in your day-to-day if you couldn't get back into business for the next 24, 48, or 72 hours? Or worst case, if you had to go rebuild all of this from scratch.
Exactly.
So how does Enable position when it comes to the immutability of the protected data?
So immutability is it's a marketing word. It's a buzzword now. It has a definition. It really does. It has a definition, but everybody's kind of taken that on. It's like worm, or it's like read only. There's it's been coined as a term by a lot of folks. I don't like to say that yes, we're immutable, or no, we're not immutable. We've got a guide that basically lists out about 20 different features that we have that support the immutability of data protection. The fact that it's stored off-site in a secure data center, that damage to the local device, encryption or deletion on the local device has no bearing on the cloud storage. There's factors in place to control access, whether it would be multi-factor access or UI login, restricted roles. So there's a lot of different factors in place to ensure that the data is, quote, immutable. But once again, don't ever take a vendor on their word. Yes, we're immutable. Like, it's not saying yes, we're encrypted. Well, what level of encryption? That brings me to my next slide. Actually, Steph, if you wouldn't mind switching that over. The keys there around having an immutable backup in place, or having the best practice when it comes into data protection, is to have something like a 3-2-1 model at a bare minimum. Maybe you need a fourth or a fifth copy of the data, and we can deliver on that one. But at a minimum, the 3-2-1 model. So 3 copies of your data, that's your production copy plus at least 2 backup copies. You want to make sure you're storing those backup copies on different types of media, whether it be local drives, NAS shares, cloud storage, in our case. And then, of course, making sure that one of those copies always gets sent off-site, whether it be physically air-gapped or virtually air-gapped. In a cloud-based solution, it's hard to get a physical air gap, but the concept of a virtual air gap is what you'll hear a lot of vendors talking about now.
Yeah.
Curious if anybody else sees this, or if anybody else aligns to this 3-2-1 model. We really believe in it. We don't consider data truly protected until it gets outside of your infrastructure. And now we can offer a 3-1 model if you want, where it goes cloud direct. And you've got workstations and mobile users and salespeople in the field, and all they have is hotel internet and Wi-Fi, cellular internet and things like that. We can still ensure it gets off of the laptop into the cloud. But then there's other methodologies where we can create a second or third or fourth copy for recovery. So lots of possibility there, but get it outside of your environment, because as long as it's on your laptop or in the same vicinity, total site loss means total data loss. Okay. Next slide there, Steph. The other thing to think about isn't just about the architecture of your backup product, but it's about how is your incumbent backup vendor, because It's not new. It's legacy technology. Backup's not sexy. Recovery, not so much either.
Come on, Eric. Yes,
It's not. No, it's not. It's been around for quite a while, but look at your vendor. Is your vendor giving you new features? And if they are, that's great. But is your vendor also changing their methodology? Are they still locked into an archaic solution that forces you to build compromise, or they've had to bolt on different technologies in order to work in a multi-tenant MSP environment, in order to add encryption, in order to give you single pane of glass type functionality, in order to adapt to things like the shift from Exchange on-premise to Microsoft 365 offerings. So look at the features, and if you're getting them, that's great, but also look at how they're changing their methodology. If they don't update their methodology, then they're creating bottlenecks for you. It's the concept of how do I want to address that one? I have a picture in my mind that's not coming out right now. Let me
Okay.
let me take you into the next slide, and I'll show you some of the legacy approaches and where
Yeah, I was
vendors
gonna
did
say,
shift.
how do you guys compare like your technology to say like Veeam or Datto, some of those names that we hear a lot about in the channel every day?
So in their own rights, they are leaders in their space. There's a lot of backup vendors, if you look on here, that have been in that top leaders quadrant or in that top corner with growth. But a lot of these have been around for quite a while, and they've evolved. In some cases they have, in others they've kind of dropped off. If we go back to the 90s or 2000s, or even up through the 2010s, Veritas, you've got Commvault, you've got ArcServe. Commvault did a wonderful job of driving a wedge between Veritas with their backup exec solution, their net backup solution. At one point. But these were file and folder based solutions that were trying to deal with, how do we do backup to disk? How do we dump the tape mentality? And, they got quickly replaced by, the likes of folks like ArcServe with their image level technologies, or Veeam with their virtualization technologies, StorageCraft with their appliances and image level solutions, because they could do backups faster than a tape-based solution, or even a file-level backup solution to disk. So what you've done, though, you've just replaced a bottleneck. You've either adjusted the cost, you've adjusted the risk, or you've changed the level of complexity of your backup environment. Once you applied software, then you had to start applying dedicated backup servers with storage for virtualization, additional hypervisors in place to spin things up. So you kept shifting that technology. What used to be a very quick software install, now you've got to roll a tech and deploy an actual server. And anybody on the line that's deployed a Datto box or a StorageCraft or even a Veeam server, there is time involved while you're out there to get this set up, configured. It's not a quick deploy, a quick evaluation. You've got to be inside of that firewall in some methodology or another, and likely physically on site. This shift from appliance to image, as we try to get rid of that bottleneck now that we don't need to be on site at the corporate office, we need to be able to protect all these distributed systems, means that a cloud-first solution where you can come in through your existing MSP tools, whether it be a Take Control, a TeamViewer, a Screen Connect, or RDP even, means that you can do a simple software installation and have backups running within a few minutes, already starting to seed directly to the cloud. So no appliances in place, no dedicated backup servers. Every machine does its own type of backup. It does its own dedupe, compression, encryption. The footprint is dispersed, and you don't buy hardware that's obsolete day one. So once again, it's not new technology from the standpoint of we're doing backup, we're doing recovery. We get you from point A to point B, and hopefully from point B back to point A when there's a disaster. But we've reduced the risk, we've reduced the cost, and we've reduced a lot of the complexity. Okay. Can you do the next slide, please, Steph?
Yep.
You mentioned regulatory a little earlier.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different regulations out there, a lot of different compliance levels and certifications. I mentioned the data centers we use. That's 30 plus data centers in 17 countries on 5 continents. A list of data centers here that we're utilizing, or countries that we're utilizing with those data centers. Those data centers are going to carry multiple different certifications or standards or compliance testing that's done behind the scenes. And we do provide that information back to our partners if you're hit with an audit or you need to get information on how we're secured and separation of roles and functionality. Some of the things I talked about, those immutable steps, we do have individuals in-house that can help you fill out those cybersecurity applications. Where they've got a lot of items to check off. Do you do this? Can you have recovery testing? Does the data have a disaster recovery plan? Is it redundant? Those kind of functionality. So flexibility is key, making sure that your vendor, even though they might say that they've got a cloud target, or they can send an image off to a cloud partner, whether it be their side or some third party, you're now looking at multiple vendors in place and a lot of ways to point fingers back and forth. Getting it all under one roof means that you've got all of your answers, all of your inquiries going to one location. And it also means that you're not going to run into bottlenecks as well. Everybody trying to push all the data to that one data center in New York or in San Francisco. By having a large number of those dispersed, we don't have those bottleneck issues or regional outages causing problems. Okay.
I mean, what are some other factors when MSPs are really evaluating enable backup for, what they're doing in their base of clients that they're serving? As it, in regards to some of these things, like you said, it's all under one roof, essentially one throat to choke, right? Instead of 4 or 5, which is always a good thing. But I mean, also, I think it takes a lot of the complexity out of things.
It does. You don't have to worry about the cloud vendor that's storing the data having a breach or not notifying properly.
Right.
You don't worry about single credential logins or restriction of roles. It is all under one roof. The other thing I mentioned a little earlier, I mentioned our local speed vault, our ability to have a local backup cache and a restore cache available. That's the thing that a lot of people want. They want the offsite security, but they also want rapid recovery. The ability to spin this thing up quickly, have a standby virtual machine they can boot up on a local hypervisor at the MSP's data center, or just be able to grab some files very quickly and do that restore at LAN speed instead of WAN speed. So yeah, obviously we've got a cloud here, and if you've got gigabit fiber into the cloud, that's great, and you can pull data out, but you still have to deal with the physics of transferring data across the wire. And multi-terabyte servers, they're not going to be quick to recover. It is about controlling that bottleneck. So having those extra pieces in place, like that local speed vault, and that could be dumb disk, it could be an existing NAS appliance. You could dedicate hardware to it if you want, or you could just utilize reclaimed or even off-lease hardware. You take that server, that 2008 server you're getting ready to retire, and refresh the RAM in it, throw in some additional disk, turn that into a BDR appliance. Basically reuse that hardware, root and reformat those data boxes or Unitrends boxes or anything that you've got that's now out of warranty, or just sitting around. We'll even see MSPs that will take some of that off-leased hardware, strap it to hand trucks, and it's in their back room at their facility. So when they have a client with an outage, especially now that we've got supply chain issues, they can utilize our software, throw up a recovery console, and put a virtual image copy right on that hardware and roll it right out to the customer while they're waiting on the hardware coming in. So it gives the software tools are here. It gives the MSP the ability to be his own BDR, backup disaster recovery provider, be his own failover site, instead of handing that revenue and those margins over to the hardware appliance vendor or the cloud vendor.
Right.
Good points.
I think that's the last slide I've got for right now, Steph. Is this
It
one
is,
yours?
yeah. It goes into me next, but I wanted to see, is there any other questions before we kind of get into my last couple of slides? Eric has a few more, but.
So there were some questions that came through the chat. So, somebody's heard about taking a 3-2-2 model. So 3-2-2, absolutely, having multiple copies out there, whether it be in a secondary data center, through our recovery console, you can do that. 3-2-1 at a bare minimum. Local only, don't do it. Cloud only, if you had to, but having multiple copies is still your best practice, definitely. And then other folks are saying that, yeah, they do adhere to that 3-2-1 model. Good to hear.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mine was just talking about that, more changes are coming into the marketplace, right? Just some more countries that are doing things, to kind of tag on to what I was talking about before, Canada, which is where I am. Eric is in Raleigh, but I'm here in Canada. We introduced our own data management and privacy regulation in 2020, called the Digital Charter Implementation Act. And so looking at this act, it's really intended to give individuals a lot more control over their data. How is it collected? How is it used? What's done with it afterwards if you decide to remove your consent? So it's really meant to provide and increase the level of transparency to individuals. We have Brazil. Brazil is bringing in the first Latin America Data Protection Privacy Act, ever. And so that's really going to change things for South America. It's likely going to become the de facto standard for South America. We have Singapore. They've amended their Privacy and Data Protection Act recently, bringing in mandatory breach notifications and consent. Like, that's awesome. Like that's a great thing that we want to be having in the marketplace. And then, as I mentioned before, Australia, they just completed this expansive review of their own Privacy Act, which again came back out in the late 80s. It was archaic, and so it needed to be redone. But again, kind of thinking about all of this, what does this mean to us as MSPs? It involves, kind of thinking about all that connectivity that your clients have in their environment, thinking about the concept of cloud first. The world we've moved, and COVID kind of pushed it along, right? That we've accepted cloud. Your clients have accepted cloud. They're doing their banking, their taxes, their music, their personal files are all in the cloud. Like, I'm working on my taxes right now. It's up there in the cloud, right? Phones are all cloud-based now. The apps that we're using, that end users are using, are all cloud-based. The cloud is just now part of our regular life now, right? And it provides a lot of flexibility to us. It's quite convenient to us. So we want to be able to support our end users in all of the ways that they use and rely the cloud. And you want to support that productivity, and you want to keep their data safe, secure, and protected. And so it really is time to kind of adopt and change our thinking here, because we're no longer tied to the limitations with appliances that have defined storage requirements that they impose on us. So it really just kind of comes down to understanding your needs, understanding your clients' needs, understanding what changes are coming in the future, and then harnessing the power of the cloud and utilizing its flexibility all to our benefit. And then, wrapping our security services around it, right? We want to have the backup, but we want to make sure we're protecting everything else around that as well. And again, let's make some more money behind it while we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
to
wrap up.
Okay, so the refresh there, obviously, like I said, backup it's not a new thing, but making sure that you're adjusting and adopting for the changes in the market and correcting for the different bottlenecks as they find them, whether it be bandwidth or storage or time to recovery is really, really important. A couple of things we've got in the core product here. we do back up to a secure private cloud. It's an enable hosted environment. I've already listed out the locations and the structures. But from our perspective, it's effectively dumb disk behind the scenes behind a web server. It's all encrypted, deduped, and compressed at the client side before it ever goes across the wire. So in motion, encrypted data at rest. Over a secure TLS 1.2 connection. It means that either you're controlling your encryption keys through private key encryption, or we're going to control and manage those for you inside of the application. If anybody were to get access to the data or be able to sniff it or snoop it en route, it's encrypted random ones and zeros. So they won't be able to get to or access that. And without that encryption key, you can't recover that data. You can keep that optional local copy, that speed vault, and it's not an investment as far as an appliance that's going to have a certain markup or vendor lock-in. It's whatever dumb storage, dumb disk, NAS or USB drive or iSCSI volume you want to have locally. There's no appliances, no physical backup servers on premise. Each machine does his own actions. And you're going to do your management from a centralized management console. Either inside of one of our RMM products, like our Incentral or RMM application, or a standalone backup console that you can utilize with your RMM of choice. Full-blown API for deployment configuration, and then, of course, multiple restore options. So we're backing up data at a file and folder level, but I can synthesize a bare metal recovery, a virtual disaster recovery, pull out files, directories, individual databases or applications. So restore it your way without having to mount a network drive and search through a system and drag files out. All of that's going to be relatively fast because we are working at a file or a sub-file level. We're going to utilize data deduplication to ensure we never send the same data across the wire twice. If I see a PowerPoint file that's been changed 15 times over the last month, each time I back that PowerPoint up, I'm going to get just the delta changes, the bytes that are different inside of the file. If it happens to be inside of an email or a SharePoint site or a PST on that disk, we'll see that as well and dedupe that version of it out. So once again, never sending the same data across the wire twice. Combine that server and workstation, that Mac and that Linux and Windows protection with cloud-to-cloud based Office 365 for your mail, your OneDrive, and your SharePoint sites. And you've got just about everything that you're going to need for that home office user or that business line of business server, still back at the corporate location. Can you hit the next slide there, Steph? A couple different components. I've alluded to these guys a little bit. We've got an engine called the Backup Manager that's going to run on each individual machine that you want to protect. We can back up at a host level or at a guest level. So much like a Veeam would do, backing up at the ESX host or the Hyper-V host, I can capture all the underlying virtual machines. Or what I'd recommend is really putting the agent on each of the guests to get the highest level of dedupe, compression, and granularity. The sessions are going to all be monitored in a centralized console. So you can go out to backup.management or log into your Incentral or RMM application that we host. You'll be able to see all those devices in a single pane of glass. It's a multi-tenant configuration. You can slice and dice that up to give your end customers or employees that are capable of doing restores themselves access to the console. So it is a true multi-tenant console that can be carved up and shared out amongst your various users. It also means that users can do their own self-service restores without having any access to other data that they may not be authorized for. And it's one of the things I've noticed is a big limitation in products that have built cloud connectivity, built centralized monitoring, tried to shift or pivot for MSP use when they had a legacy on-prem application. They'll still require you to either punch a hole into the firewall to manage or to deploy, or they'll make you consolidate a bunch of different reports and dashboards together to get a single view. And then they don't provide that out for in-customer use or advanced reporting capabilities. On the recovery side, bare metal recovery, we boot up into Windows PE, we lay down the entire operating system as well as the application and the data, or I can do a multi-session restore and build multiple VMs, either reactively after the failure has occurred, or I can do it proactively. So there's a virtual machine sitting there as of last night's or 2 hours ago, backup session ready to boot in the event of data disaster. So it's a question about whether you want proactive recovery or reactive recovery. Obviously, being more proactive, having a higher SLA for your customer costs you more to manage and monitor. But from our perspective, we give you the tools. We don't charge you any different for those kind of things. Okay. If there's any questions on technology, things of that nature, feel free to drop them in. Can you hit the next slide there, Steph, please? I think this is my wrap-up slide, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so at a final here, the goal is to be simple, be powerful, be affordable, not to charge you per CPU core or number of virtual machines that are being protected, or charge you for your recovery capabilities. I always look at charging for recovery as ransomware. So in our structure, it's based on what we're backing up, licensed servers, licensed workstations. We do have some fair use models to assume or ensure we don't see abuse, but those are pretty reliable, pretty flexible. It's a core cloud-first based data protection solution for physical, virtual, encompassing your cloud-to-cloud Office 365 capabilities, single dashboard in our private enabled data centers. Or optionally, if you have to have an environment where it's hosted in your own facilities, your own data centers, we do offer a software-only solution that is available. And it just takes a lot of the risk, a lot of the complexity, a lot of the guesswork about knowing, was that server, was that workstation backed up? And if so, when was it last successful?
Yeah, well done.
Awesome. Yeah, if any of you guys have any questions that you would like Eric or Stephanie to address while we are live on the webinar, like I said, be sure to put those in the chat, or if you want to put them in the Q&A, we'll make sure to address those live. Eric put the contact information so you guys can reach out to both of them, as well as a few of those links that he mentioned earlier on in the presentation.
Perfect. Yeah, because it could be like, you're thinking about this, you're kind of noodling on it, and something hits you. Like everything hits me at 2 a.m. in the morning.
I was gonna say, Eric, it always, hits
2 a.m. in the morning is when I get all my questions. I know Eric put the information in there. Our information's on the slide. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, make sure to reach out, and if you we'll see you guys in May at our Q2 Dallas event. So if any of you are interested in coming and seeing Enable speak live and meeting some of them in person, we will be live with them at May 18th and 19th in Dallas, Texas. So I will, make sure we put a link in and send you all some information on that as well. But yeah, thank you guys again for your time today. I appreciate, the value that you guys are able to add to MSPs in the channel. Always great knowledge, and you guys have been awesome. So I appreciate your time, and thank you again.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Eric.